My name is Mike Carbonell. I'm with Core Associates. I will be one of the co-presenters today. Also presenting will be Mike Gillum from Acumatica. And why don't we go ahead and just start by giving a bit of a sense for where we're going to go from here. So on the agenda, again, I've done the introductions already, so that part is out of the way. We're going to talk about two primary aspects of, I guess, a company's business, if you will. I will start by walking us through some challenges with respect to accounts payable. We'll talk about automating the AP workflows and how that's done with Acumatica. I'm going to do an actual Acumatica presentation in the product. And then what I'm going to do is turn it over to Mike Gillum, and Mike will then take us into Acumatica, and he'll spend some time going through the Acumatica Construction Edition. So one of the things that we normally encounter as we are working with clients that are looking at a new or an ERP solution is one of the areas that they specifically want to address is the area of AP and managing the AP workflow. So one of the things that Core Associates has perfected over the last dozen years or so is that process of managing AP workflow. It's one of the things that we specialize in, and it's basically one of the key areas that we've managed to pull together into all of the products that we've designed, and specifically in this case where Acumatica is concerned. So that's where we'll start. We'll go through that process today. We'll talk a little bit about some of those challenges. We'll talk about the workflows that we can develop, and also things that we've already developed that will address those particular challenges. And then I'll go through, as I said, a presentation of Acumatica. Okay, so these are probably things that I don't need to really relate to anyone else. For those that are attending today's presentation, I'm sure you're aware of this. From an AP perspective, the process of manually taking invoices when they arrive at your door and taking those invoices and sending them out for review and approval can be extremely laborious. It causes a lot of double entry. Invoices get sent off for review and approval, and many times you have no idea when they're going to get back. There are just reams of paper scattered across various departments and organizations. Vendors and subcontractors become frustrated when they don't know the status of the invoice or when they're going to get paid. And then as businesses begin to grow, if they can't hire additional staff without the ability to create efficient and effective workflows, it becomes an even bigger problem. So given that, what an automated AP workflow system allows is taking invoices and acquiring and coding them in a single location, and then allowing for, through the business rules, routing those invoices off for approval. All of those documents, associated supporting documents and what have you, can be stored in one place that's easy to access, easy to be able to retrieve information. With respect to accounts payable, one of the key areas is single point entry. So rather than having invoices coming into different locations, being entered in different places, basically they're going into one AP entry process and then sent off to the approvers as needed. Probably one of the biggest issues is the ability to have control and visibility over the project, the documents, the invoices, and what have you. So in many cases, when a client will visit with me initially, I'll ask them, what's your current process? And for the most part, I hear a lot of different types of scenarios with respect to accounts payable, but probably the most common theme is that everything's being done manually, and it's very difficult to be able to track and understand what the status of an invoice is at any given time. So that's one of the things that we'll kind of go through, we'll address, we'll talk about how that can be mitigated through the process of using a system like Acumatica. Okay, so what I want to do before we actually go into the presentation is talk about these four primary steps, because this is what we'll cover when I actually go into the application. Basically, what happens is invoices, as they arrive at your door, they will be acquired into the Acumatica application. So we'll take a physical document or an email, for example, and we'll acquire it as a digital image that will now be part of the Acumatica application. It can be reviewed, it can be called up later on if need be. But basically, after it has been initially acquired, that invoice or invoices will be sent off for data entry. What will happen is that the invoices will actually be entering the invoices in Acumatica, and then what we do in Acumatica is the invoice images get attached to that metadata that gets processed in Acumatica. So invoices are being processed. Once we've saved the invoice in Acumatica, the invoice gets attached to the record in Acumatica, and we pull all of that data from what was entered in Acumatica back onto the invoice in Acumatica, and then it goes off for review and approval. How it gets to the approvers is based on the business rules that are set up in Acumatica. And basically, these can be as elaborate, as extensive as you want them to be, or as simple as you want them to be. So for example, if you said, well, typically what we would do is route the invoices off to maybe the project manager on a job or a project, then it's as simple as being able to create a business rule or rules that will do that. But it could be a scenario where you have multiple approvers. You may have dollar thresholds in which you need to be able to escalate invoices up to another level of approval. So all of those things are possible within the application. Once it gets to the approvers have various ways in which they can approve invoices. They can call them up on their desktop if they want, or they can use any type of mobile device to be able to approve their invoices. So the system is designed to allow for, if someone happens to be out in the field, they can take the invoice, call it up on their iPhone or Android device, or if they happen to have an iPad or what have you, and be able to go through the process of approving that way as well. Ultimately, all of the information and the approvals end up back in Acumatica. So basically, if I were to go through as an approver and make any changes to a particular invoice, those changes get sent back to Acumatica immediately. Any types of documents that were associated, the invoice, maybe supporting documents like a purchase order, receiving ticket, what have you, and the check, all of that gets attached and is submitted back to Acumatica so that it's viewable at any given time. Now with that, what I thought I'll do at this point is we're going to stop the presentation and we'll actually go into the product. So I've already logged into both Acumatica and to Acumatica. And we're going to go through this workflow process, and we're going to take those steps that I just reviewed, where we're going to start at the point where an invoice arrives at your door. Now, just for the sake of kind of a little bit of knowledge with respect to the applications, these are both cloud-based solutions. Cloud-based solutions. So they're run on a cloud server. You can actually install on the product on your local server if you want, but basically it's using a web browser. It has all of the side panel functionality as you're kind of working through the application, and it's very easy in terms of usability, access, and what have you. Okay, so let's go ahead in. So in Acumatica, we're going to start at the point where an invoice arrives at your door. And to take that invoice and receive it and acquire it into the Acumatica application, we're going to take the acquire function, and from here, there are several options with which we can choose. Now, one thing we could do is if you are using, or let's say that you received invoices by mail, and you wanted to be able to take that batch of invoices, maybe put them onto your scanning device. You could scan directly into the application, but for the most part, most companies today have a multifunction device, a network scanner. So in that case, what you would do is you would scan to a network file. So I'm just going to select invoices as my images that we're going to acquire. And the second thing I'm going to do is determine who it is that I'll be assigning these invoices to once they've been acquired. So if we think back to that PowerPoint slide again, we're going to acquire first, then we're going to send them off to data entry, and in data entry, we'll go through the process of entering the invoices, and then they'll go off for review and approval. So we're basically determining at this point, what is it that we're acquiring, and who is it that's going to be the first person that would take this invoice and start that invoice entry process. So this could be multiple people. It could be a group of people. I've set up someone, basically a data entry group that I want to assign the invoices to. And then what I can do in this case, since let's say that I was using a network scanner, I can just go ahead and acquire them from whatever network file that I scanned them to. And it's simply a matter of just going through, sweeping through whatever invoices I want to acquire. Maybe I just want to acquire this invoice for right now. And it then selects those invoices and pops them up into the viewer as you see here. I can always zoom in and zoom out if I want to make this larger or smaller. What I could also do is, let's say that this happens to be a 2-page document where the first page that's sitting in front of me is invoice 393. Over here, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so that we can see it a little better. And then over in the thumbnail view, if I go to the second page, I do have a second invoice. So the system will try to naturally split invoices or documents as it sees fit. But if it can't, in this case, I happen to acquire 2 invoices. You can always just right-click and you say you want to split them, and now I've split them into 2 separate invoices or 2 separate documents. It's that simple to be able to take a batch of invoices and pull them into the system, acquire them, and then when I hit the process button, it will take those invoices and assign them to whatever data entry person or group that we want to send them to. So that's kind of the basics or the first aspect of the acquire process. Let's talk about a couple of other ways that you can go about doing this. First, maybe I have documents or invoices that maybe came in by way of email. What I can do is I can just drag and drop a document from an email, from my desktop or what have you, right to the screen, and I can open it here. So drag and drop is an option, acquiring images directly from a scanner or from a file. Now, the other option that I can also choose is that we have an email monitoring tool that works in conjunction with Acumatica. What it will do is, in many cases, a lot of companies today have a designated AP email address where they've asked vendors and subs to email their invoices to. So the system can monitor that email address. It will take the invoices from the email address. It will pull them into the system automatically into a file, and then I can just, again, pull them out of the file and view them here and then just go ahead and process. So there's the ability to acquire via email from an email monitoring program, acquire by way of mail if we want to scan them, or you can just drag and drop. Okay, once invoices have been acquired, next step in the process is we'll go through invoice entry. So I'm just going to go ahead and call up an invoice. And just for the sake and purposes of the presentation, so we don't get too deeply into the weeds, I've already gone through the process of entering an invoice in Acumatica. And what Mike Gillum is going to do in a few minutes is he's going to show you a little bit more in terms of detail with respect to Acumatica. But for the purposes of the AP side, I've gone through, I've entered an invoice, I've charged it to a project and what have you. And once I've gone ahead and saved this particular invoice, what Acumatica does is it attaches this invoice image to that particular record. So it basically does 2 things. In Acumatica, I could then go through the process of calling up that particular invoice, and I'll show you that in a second. The second thing that happens is that once it attaches this image to that record, it pulls all of the data. So basically anything that was keyed in over here is now attached to that particular invoice over here. And by the way, because of the fact that I'm doing the presentation on my one screen here, you can tile these screens so that these two are kind of sitting side by side if you want. Or you can have one on, if you have dual screens, you can have the invoice on one screen and you can have this data entry grid on the other. So that basically they're kind of working in sync so that you're not bouncing back and forth. So basically, once the invoice data gets attached to the invoice, what will then happen is that it will then execute the business rules based on what has been keyed in. So let's say, for example, that we said that this invoice is being charged to this particular project 1001. So if that were a business rule that said I want to send it off to the project manager for that particular project, it just goes ahead and does so. If there are any supporting documents, it will then start calling up the supporting documents, and I have the choice of being able to attach them to the invoice at this time if I want. Or I can just drag and drop a document right to the screen if I have something that I wanted to attach from here. Okay, so let's say that we've gone through that process. We've entered an invoice. The invoice image has been attached, and all of the data has been attached, and it's now been sent off to the approver. Back in Acumatica, if I want, I could go ahead, at this point, I can just go ahead and call up that invoice. So I'm able to view it right from here and see the invoice image. So it immediately goes through that process of attaching. And in a second here, it will call up that particular invoice. I'll just call it up here. In this case, not only was the invoice attached, but it also attached a particular purchase order that I said I wanted to link to that particular invoice. Okay, let's go back out of there. Let's go over here. So invoices have now been routed to approvers. Before I go over to the approval side, very quickly, I just wanted to mention there are many different ways in which I can go about managing the process at this point. So, maybe I want to know, for example, what's the status? Where are those invoices? Well, we have a series of reports and inquiries and what have you that you can call up. I just have a couple loaded in my sample, but I'll just show you an example of one here. I'm just calling up invoices that are routed to a particular approver. And here are the 3 invoices that are routed to John Doe at this point. It's giving me all the information associated with the invoice, and I can look over all this info very quickly. There are different ways that I can go about selecting and previewing this information. But in a matter of seconds, I know the status of every invoice and where it stands at any given time. And these allow you for the flexibility of different ways in which you can go about viewing and what have you. The other thing that I could also do is I could call up what's called the workflow task queue. And I can go look and see what someone has in their particular tasks. So if I wanted to see how many invoices John Doe has, I can call it up in more of kind of a grid format like this if I want. I can download this to Excel. But again, another way that I can go about viewing the status of invoices. And this grid also is dynamic where I can start moving things around if I wanted to be able to do things like that. Okay, so let's now jump over to the approval side. And I'm going to go into my workflow task queue. I'm now the approver. I'll start calling up my invoices. I happen to have 3 invoices, as we saw before, that are routed to me. What I can do is I can look at them in this grid format, similar to what we saw with the that workflow status inquiry. Or if I want, I could switch and bring these up in a card view. In the card view, I have the flexibility of being able to simply go through and select a group of these at one time if I wanted to be able to start processing them, or individually I can select as I go. So the invoice that we processed in Acumatica that we've attached happens to be this invoice right here. And by the way, and again, without getting into a lot of the detail here, you can set this up so that you could start processing these on any type of a mobile device. It's a dynamic uh, user inquiry that would allow you, whichever method you want, to be able to go through and approve your invoices. Okay, so let's say that I go ahead and just select this particular invoice. Before I go ahead and approve it, maybe I want to go through and call it up and look at the details. As I do so, it calls up the invoice info with all of the metadata, all of the information that was keyed in on that invoice here. And then let's just say, for example, that I needed to change the cost code. This may take a second because there we go. So let's say I wanted to change it to cost code 1002. I can do that. Once I save this particular transaction, what it then does is it sends that particular change immediately back to that record in Acumatica. And I apologize because I knew this was probably going to take a little bit because it had to go out and find all those cost codes. I hadn't set this up beforehand. So anyway, it will go through, it will save that particular record, and then that change back in Acumatica has already been recorded. So it now goes in. I probably have to exit out of the screen. There's cost code 1001. But if I go back out and I call that particular record back up again, just this one here, should have changed that particular record to 1002. And let's hope it didn't make me a liar. There it is. Okay. So you can see how dynamic it is with respect to how the information gets exchanged back and forth between the actual invoice process and the routing and workflow process and what's actually happening on the front end where the invoice actually resides. Okay, so I'm going to just work through a couple of other things here before I turn it over to Mike Gillum. So basically what I can do, I can approve or reject invoices here. And again, all of that information gets updated back into the system and gets transmitted to accounting if need be. Once invoices go through the routing and approval process and they've been approved, all the data is updated. And then let's say, for example, that we're at the point where maybe we wanted to process checks. So we have the ability to go through that check processing system in Acumatica. And in Acumatica, we can automatically attach that check information. So basically what you're going to get ultimately is a complete package that will include the invoice, any of the supporting documents to the invoice, and the check altogether. So we have the ability, regardless of whether the checks are printed or you're using some other type of automated method to go about generating your checks, including electronic funds and what have you, and we can attach that check data to that particular invoice. All right, so two other things before I finish. One, I've talked about Acumatica primarily from the perspective of accounts payable. But the application is not just an AP routing and approval or AP workflow system. It's basically a document management solution for any document. So any type of, whether it's project management, human resource, what have you, those documents are all fair game in Acumatica. And they can be acquired separately from invoices. They can be used as supporting documents to an invoice. Or if you just want to be able to compile and save them here, just like what we saw back here in Acumatica when I was calling up that particular invoice record and I call up the invoice and the purchase order, we have different places within Acumatica where you can, again, call up any document that you want. So I might be saving a document in Acumatica and I'm able to call up the record in Acumatica if I want to see that particular image. And then finally, many companies have scenarios where they need to compile backup to support, like, for example, a T&M or cost plus billing, or maybe for a loan draw. And we've built that particular capability in Acumatica. So if I were to come in here and say, just as an example, I'd probably do this more by project, but let's just say I want to compile all of the AP invoices for this particular vendor. What the system does is it goes through, it compiles that list, and then when I select this option for showing the invoice report, what it will then do is it will create a report preview, allowing me to put a title if I want it on that particular report and subtitle. I can sort it or group it by, let's say I want to group this by, let's say by vendor. I think they're all the same vendor anyway, so it doesn't matter. Maybe we'll sort by cost code, and we'll go ahead and do a preview. Once we process this and it calls up that particular previewed report, behind the report are all of the supporting documents to these particular transactions. So I have the invoice image, and then behind the invoice, in this case, I have the purchase order, and we continue on down through. So for compiling backup to support any of those particular scenarios, the system allows you to be able to do this in a matter of seconds. And this tends to be a process that can be very time consuming for many companies. So, okay, so at this point, what I will do is I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mike Gillum. I'm going to make him the presenter, and he'll take over and walk you through some of the aspects of Acumatica.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. You should be seeing Acumatica now. I've got a dashboard up on the screen.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, thank you very much, Mike, for that introduction. Great presentation. I can see a number of places where Acumatica is going to help improve our customers' processes from a time-saving perspective and the ability to get access to those documents at the right time and, of course, in the right place, which is huge. So what I'm going to do, folks, is just spend a little bit of time giving you an overview of the Acumatica Construction Edition. I'll focus most of my time on the construction piece. What you're looking at here on the screen, I've already logged into Acumatica, and every time you log in, you have a home page that you log into. In this particular instance, we're looking at a project dashboard. And the Acumatica Construction Edition is a cloud offering, as Mike previously mentioned. It's built specifically from the ground up for a web environment, and it's a role-based construction management offering that we feel is intuitive and very easy to use, which I'm going to show you here as I walk through the presentation. We're supported by most any browser. I'm running this on Chrome, but we can run on Edge, Internet Explorer, Safari, Firefox, really any of the major browsers that are out there. And because we are a cloud-based system, a true cloud-based system, the data that you want to access in the system can be accessed anytime, anywhere on any device. So whether you're using a computer, a PC, a Mac, a tablet, or a smartphone, the Construction Edition will automatically adjust to accommodate whichever device you are using. Whether you're on a tablet or smartphone, some of those tablets and smartphones are the sizes of small televisions now anyway, so you can see a lot of information on there. There's also a mobile app available in the Construction Edition as well. So lots of ways to access that information that you need to in the project. The system's easily configurable without the need for developers, and we do that a number of different ways: by reports, inquiries, dashboards like you see here, and the different forms that are in the system. The Acumatica report writer and designer is built right into the system, so you don't have to go to a third-party product to manipulate that information. All of these dashboard widgets, each one of these is what we call a widget that you see, can be customized. And you'll notice different types of widgets here. I've got some tables of information like this: cost by project, by job. And you'll see this blue hyperlink that lets you drill down to any of that pertinent information. So if I wanted to drill down to any of the open committed costs that I have on any one of these projects, I can do that right from this dashboard. I don't have to go to another screen or form or function to get there. I can get to it right from the dashboard. We can even embed web pages on the dashboard. So this is just a job site camera giving you access to your job site again, from any device. If you've got multiple projects going on and you want to be able to keep track of a particular project, well, you can do that right from a dashboard on your smartphone, tablet, or PC from wherever you are. The different types of widgets that we see here, we've got invoices that need to be approved. We were just talking about with Mike on the Acumatica side. We've got a change order log, all the different change orders that I've got, the status of those change orders, and different graphs and charts that can be set up related to specific information that you want to see. Now, this is the project dashboard, and there are specific dashboards built in Acumatica, like a controller dashboard, an AR dashboard, an AP dashboard, some of the core accounting functionality. But there's also a project manager's dashboard, which may have specific tasks linked to a specific project manager. What I'm going to do is jump right into the project side of Construction Edition. So I'm going to click on my projects tab, and I've already got a project open here. And this is one of the unique things about the Acumatica Construction Edition is this projects page. Because if you look right in the middle of the screen, we've got these tabs going across there, starting with summary, budgets, and as I work my way over, change orders, commitments, and we've got a couple of other tabs, invoices and balances. Well, what's unique about that is it's a one-stop shop for your project information. So you don't have to go to a separate screen to get to those invoices, to get to the balance tab, to look at a mini P&L of the project. Even change orders is available right from within the project screen. So I'm not having to jump around to a whole bunch of different screens and forms within my software. Everything's available right for me on this screen. The first tab that you're looking at, this is the projects tab. This is where that project gets set up. What type of revenue budget level are we looking at? Task and cost code, just task, start and end date for the project, who the PM is on the project. And as I scroll down, we've got some pertinent information related to billing. This particular project is a progress bill, but you can set up custom billing rules within Acumatica, like T&M, quick billing, fixed price, cost plus, etc. All customizable right within the system. You can even create your own allocation rules in the system as well. As I work through some of the different tabs, I'm not going to cover all of them in the interest of time, but let's start with the cost budget. So this cost budget information can be imported from an estimating product or from an Excel spreadsheet, for example. So you'll notice these icons exist in multiple places within Acumatica, and that allows you to load that information from a third-party file. So if you are using a third-party estimating system or an Excel spreadsheet to create your budgets, well, you can upload that information directly into Acumatica without having to enter them one line item at a time. In this particular case, we're looking at the budget broken down by task and by cost code. So we're looking at some of the details within the cost budget side. If we wanted to roll that information up, we can just simply click this group by task button, and now it's going to show us a simpler view of what that cost budget looks like. We can even get to a point where we can view our commitment details and transactions directly from the cost budget screen. So for example, if I wanted to look at concrete transactions for this project, right from the cost budget, I can select my concrete task, and now it's going to link me to all of my project transactions related to that particular task. So I can even drill down, get to those individual project transactions from within the project screen, and I've got all the pertinent information related to each one of those transactions available to me right on this one screen. If I switch over from the revenue or the cost side to the revenue side, now we're looking at the revenue aspect of the project. So here we're again looking at it by our schedule of values or tasks. That could be divisions in this case, like the CSI 16 division format. It could be in a master format, uni format, could be phases, activities, however you want to break down your projects, whatever work breakdown structure, WBS code that you may currently be using. One of the things that is unique also in the Acumatica Construction Edition is the ability to update this percent complete on the fly. So your project managers are out in the field. They could be doing these percent complete updates on a daily basis, weekly basis. Again, depends on your business processes. But the ability to change that number on the fly, for example, openings, I've been given an update and know that we're now 40% complete. When I tab out of that, it's going to automatically generate this pending invoice amount for me. And if I'm ready to build the project, I don't even have to leave this screen. I can come right up here to run project billing, and it's going to automatically generate, in this case, a pro forma or a pencil invoice for us, because that's what we told it to when we set up the project. So we can see that this is a progress bill. We've got our detailed information down below, our header information up at the top. It's currently on hold, so release is unavailable. If I untick that hold button, release becomes available. It's going to automatically update the project for us. So if I go back to our project screen, I'm not going to make saves there. If I go back to that project screen, I can now move on through the rest of the project, seeing that those invoices have been updated from the changes I made on the revenue side. Same thing with change orders. If you want to create change orders on the fly, you can view or create them from the mobile app or from the PC itself. You can see I've got a number of change orders sitting here on this project, and I even have some documents attached to this particular change order. That little yellow paperclip there and the yellow note is letting me know I have a note attached or a document attached to that particular change order. If I open up that change order, it's just going to give us the header information. All of the screens within Acumatica have the same look and feel. So we've got our header information at the top, our detailed information below around that change order. So the first aspect or first tab is the revenue aspect of the change order. Second tab is the cost. And then if there's commitments associated with the change order, and we could have details and special attributes set up for each of those change orders as well. So just like the invoice, this particular change order could be on hold, it could be open, different statuses that can be set up for those change orders. There's approval maps and approval settings built right into the construction edition, so you can set up all those approval routing and who gets to approve what items, specified by dollar amounts or sizes of change orders or invoices, etc. Lots of flexibility built into the system. As I move across the tabs, again, we talked about the balances tab earlier. Again, this is that mini P&L of your project. You don't have to go to a different screen or a report to get that information. We've got the income side and the expense side related to this particular project. And just like we could on the budgets, if we wanted to view transactions or commitment details around any of these expense or income items, we can simply click on those, view those commitments, or view the transactions right from the balances tab. If I click on the commitments tab now, we're seeing all of the purchase orders and subcontracts that we have for this particular project. Again, I don't have to leave that screen. I've got the right information necessary for this project right at my fingertips within that one particular screen. If we wanted to drill down on one of these purchase orders, I can just click on that hyperlink. It's going to open up that PO for us. Now we're looking at the purchase order screen, and just like the change order and the invoice, header information at the top, detailed information around that particular purchase order below. If we wanted to take a look at that purchase order, we can come right up to the reports, and it's going to give us a preview of what that purchase order looks like. And again, you've got the report writer and designer built right into the product, so you can change the color scheme, change the look and feel, change how all of the reports and forms in the system look like based on your needs or your client's needs of what that information needs to look like. Same thing on the invoices side. If I click on invoices, I'm looking at all the invoices around the project now. So I've got some pro forma invoices. I've got a couple of AR invoices sitting here as well, and also some draws. So if I wanted to drill down on any one of those individual items, I can just click on that hyperlink to do so. So again, you've got access to all of that project information right from this one particular screen. And the last thing I wanted to show you before I turn it back over to Mike is some of the reports that are available within the construction edition. So I know some of you have to do AIA reports, the G702 and G703 form reports and forms, as well as billing. So we have standard AIA reports built right in. We also have project WIP reports. So I'm just going to run a WIP report at a high level on this project and run that report. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit because it's a bit of a eye chart, eye test. So we're looking at a high level of the project. We've got our contracted amounts with our original approved and any revised amounts. And as I scroll slowly to the right, we've got our estimated costs, our estimated gross profit percentage, our actual costs, right, with our project cost to date, percent complete, billings, and then we've got our under over billings and our forecasted costs as well. But this is again showing us at a high level. If I want to see a detail WIP for a particular project. I don't have to leave the screen. I don't have to run another report. I can just click on the hyperlink of the project, and it's going to automatically now give us that view at a detailed level. So we're seeing it at the task or activity or phase level, as well as at the cost code level. Same column headings. We're looking at our WIP by estimated costs, contract amounts, actuals, revised, over under billings, and forecasted, but we're seeing it at that cost code detailed level. So really giving you access again to that right information, letting you drill down to the information you wanted to see around a particular project. So we also have other dashboards, as I quickly talked about. I'm going to zoom back out and show you one more dashboard, which is the project manager's dashboard. So if I go back to dashboards, click on project manager, we're now seeing a project manager specific dashboard. So we've got some project issues that he or she may have to be dealing with on particular projects, project summaries with all those committed costs that we looked at. We've even got a weather app here. Again, we can put embedded web pages on those dashboards. First thing that they see when they log into the system is the PM dashboard or whatever their homepage setting is, giving them access to the information that they need to focus on, whether it's tasks or approvals or activities or change orders, all the things that you can set up on the particular dashboards. Lots of flexibility there within the Acumatica Construction Edition. So Mike, I know that was a lot of information pretty quickly, but that's what I wanted to share today. So I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mike. That was perfect.
Excellent.
Very good. Okay, I'll take it back. Kick this back off again. Okay, so just to give everyone a little bit of a brief background on Core Associates, and then Mike will spend a moment talking about Acumatica. Core Associates, as I think I may have alluded to earlier, has been around for about 12 years. For those of you who may be familiar with a product called TimberScan, that was a product that we developed specifically for Sage 300. It's been in the marketplace for several years, as I mentioned, about 12 years, and it is considered the top of the line AP routing and approval system for Sage 300 CRE. That AP routing and approval system called TimberScan we have over 30,000 users of that particular application. The ease of use of the product, written especially for the platform, as I think and hopefully you saw with respect to Acumatica, that's basically what we do. We design it in such a way that it makes it easy to kind of work within the platform that we're working with. We provide support to our clients directly, and we feel that there's a quick return on investment. In fact, I noticed that there was a question about ROI in the chat window that I'll talk about in a few moments. We continue to innovate and enhance not only our core products, being the TimberScan, Acumatica applications, but we also have a series of cloud-based solutions that work around those particular applications as well. So that's a little bit about Core Associates. I'll go to the next slide and let Mike talk about Acumatica, and then we'll wrap it up here.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Mike. So yeah, the Construction Edition, as I just showed you, lots of benefits there to help you improve margins and increase that project control, which is very important at all stages, whether it's the pre-con side, managing the project as it's ongoing, and of course the back-end accounting side. With financials and project accounting and the project management pieces. I just barely scratched the surface of the construction functionality in that little brief presentation. So we can definitely set up some time for additional demos, or if anybody has more information, they can get it at acumatica.com/construction, where we've got a whole bunch of videos and some testimonials and white papers and documents related to the Construction Edition. The Construction Edition is one of the newest offerings from Acumatica. Acumatica has been around since 2008. We've got around 4,000 customers. The Construction Edition is the newest edition. We just introduced it at this past International Builders Show in Orlando. So we're very excited about the opportunity. and the product itself is getting tons of excellent feedback from our partners, customers, and prospects alike. In addition to the construction edition, we also offer manufacturing, distribution, and e-commerce editions. And inside of Acumatica, there's multiple modules. The construction edition is one of those modules, but we also have CRM, inventory, and field service modules right within the product. So if you're a service contractor, or you want to be able to manage your opportunities and maybe marketing and sales and leads, you have the ability to do that right within the CRM side. So we cover lots of the tick boxes related to a construction company, but we also have other functionality in addition to that can help run their businesses.
Great, Mike. Thank you very much. Okay, so what I'll do now is I will open up the lines for anyone that wishes to ask any questions. We do have a couple of questions in the chat window, which I'll read. Let's see here. Okay. So what is the typical implementation time? Okay, so from the Acumatica perspective, typically clients are able to start processing their invoices within a matter of probably about 30 to 45 days to be able to take those invoices, create their routing rules, and start getting them off to their approvers and giving them the ability to be able to manage that workflow process. So building the workflows, starting to manage them and processing them and connecting that data. A 30 to 45 to, well, let's just say between 30 and 60 days to do that. So on the Acumatica side, what is the typical return on investment period? We've calculated that for most of our clients that implement either an Acumatica application like we have here, ROI is typically less than 1 year. They're able to the amount of people that they invest in, and they're able to get that money back within less than 12 months. And the last question I have is, how is it priced? I think both applications are basically priced the same way. It's based on consumption. For the purposes of Acumatica, think of number of invoices that are processed in the course of a given month, and that's basically how the product is priced. It's tiered based on those entry levels, if you will. So it starts with up to, let's say, 1,000 invoices in a month, and then from 1,001 to 2,000, and so on and so forth. And we can get more information to everyone with regard to pricing as we go.
Yeah, and Acumatica is priced the exact same way, Mike, by transactions, unlimited number of users, right? You can have as many different users on the system as you wanted to.
Yes, good point. Excellent. Mm-hmm.